Why would the Dolphins giving De'Von Achane an extension right now be March Madness? That more this week on the couch debut, long awaited. Brian Brian, it's the time of year that the combatants are the front offices making decisions affecting the short and long term of these teams. We saw the Dolphins make one big one, trading Jaylen Waddle away, and maybe they'll go the other direction with their other quote unquote cornerstone. Why do you think it would be madness if they sign him to an extension now?
Yeah, and thanks for having me first and foremost. Loved it on the couch. So I mean, you look at De'Von Achane and last year what he did and what he's done over the last few years. And you know, we can get real nerdy fantasy and be like, oh, the guy averaged 20 points a game in PPR, and that's all fantastic. We know what a special talent De'Von Achane is. The problem is this is a horrendous football team. I quote tweeted our friend Shefty, who said something to the effect of the Dolphins have only 10 players in 2026 that will count for at least $2 million on their cap. $2 million, 10 guys. I mean, this team is going to be so laughably bad. And you have Malik Willis. Who knows what he gives you under center? You have nothing at wide receiver. This is a horrible, horrible team. So in the long and short of things, by the time this team turns it around, De'Von Achane is going to be well past his prime. He's going to have no value to this team. They'll already be looking to draft or sign another running back. I mean, Sig, this is a team. Their starting wide receivers right now are Tutu Atwell, Jalen Tolbert, and Malik Washington. It's going to take them half a decade to become relevant again. Like, you already traded Waddle. You got rid of Tua. Go get, I don't know, what do you think you could get for De'Von Achane in the world today? Like, I mean, you already missed free agency, but
Number 32.
Oh, you think so?
Pick number 32. I think Seattle was mentioned as a team. I think it was Tony Pauline reporting that they were kicking around the idea of like Tariq Woolen for De'Von Achane at the deadline last year. So we already know. So, but I'm just saying, like, I'm just throwing out a possibility. I interrupted you, but interrupted you to say, like, this is what's fun about these conversations in the off season, right? Is we try, and we're on the couch, aren't we? We put ourselves in the shoes of these decision makers, John Eric Sullivan, and saying, okay, if I'm looking down the line at De'Von Achane getting $15 million a year or more, is that I can kind of know right now whether I'm going to do that next year or not. And if I feel like, yeah, chances are I'm not, it's time to trade him. It's time 100%. To trade him. And certainly Seattle is a team that would make sense. And Seattle's a team that's even being discussed taking running back on the first or second day. So I think that's the kind of thing we have to be open to. So even though we're saying the Dolphins should sell De'Von Achane, maybe for fantasy football, there's we have to be open to these possibilities. Right.
Let's say De'Von Achane goes to Seattle, which would be fun to talk about because you and I host shows and Lord knows we need things to talk about. So he's on his final year of his rookie deal. He's only making a little over $2 million this year. Okay, so let's say he goes to Seattle.
Right.
Completely different offense out there. Different play caller, obviously. He's not a grind it between the tackles guy. I mean, can he run between tackles? Sure, but he's a smaller guy. I think, what is he, like 5'8"? So, yes, 5'8", 188. What is his value in that offense? Because, will they totally reformulate their offense to fit Achane? I mean, that's what you would think good coaches do, is change things to fit your talent, not try to make talent fit into your scheme. But that would be really interesting because we see that all the time in football where players move teams and we just kind of wish cast them and say, okay, they're going to be fantastic now. And then it's like, well, no, they don't fit this role at all. So I wonder with Achane, there's no way he would live up to the same hype that he had in Miami, in Seattle, because it's just a totally different offense. I just don't think he fits at all there.
Yeah, I think that you bring up some good questions about even just if we look at Seattle's running game being mostly inefficient, no matter whether it's Charbonnet or Ken Walker carrying the ball. And then you have Achane, who was made super efficient as a runner at his peak. And then you see him as a weapon in the passing game. And we saw how the Seahawks, they dabble in Ken Walker's receiver. He would make stuff happen. And then for whatever reason, they wouldn't use him as a receiver. So you're right that it would cast a shadow, although ideally in terms of running backs, we want them on good teams that win and have touchdown drives and things like that. So in that sense, it could be good for Miami. But I do think that you bring this up. It was something you put out today that inspired me to lead with this. Is this is the time of year for team building decisions, and the good teams are looking 2 or 3 years ahead. So let's talk about speaking of the Seahawks. The Jaxon Smith Njigba extension. I had a lot of thoughts. I always have a lot of thoughts. I mean, my brain is just nonstop. But really, when I saw this, I thought, there's ripple effects here. There's ripple effects to Jaxon Smith Njigba getting $42 million a year now from the Seahawks. Tell me what your reaction was, or looking at it from the Seahawks standpoint, or the rest of the NFL, or just a fan of Jaxon Smith Njigba.
I mean, he's great. And they had to pay. This is why Ken Walker's no longer on the team. At some point, are you going to pay Sam Darnold? We'll see. I'm sure we'll talk about that. You got to pay JSN. You got to pay Devon Witherspoon. He's got a contract coming up. There's so many young guys who are talented that have to come up. And let's go back to Sam Darnold. The reason they could have that great Super Bowl run is they're not paying Sam Darnold anything. Last year, I mean, what was his cap number? $13 million. So in this year, in 26, it's going to go up. But I mean, his base salary is only 12.3, so a guaranteed salary 17.5. So you're not paying him really top of the market money for a quarterback. In 27, he has no guaranteed money. They could get out from Sam Darnold if they wanted to. And again, yes, he just won them a Super Bowl, and I'm talking about getting him off the team in 2 years. But that's a thing that can happen. Is Sam Darnold a world beater? Absolutely not. Like, you can improve, I believe, upon Sam Darnold or get competent play equal to that. So in 2 years, they can get out of Sam Darnold. He has no guaranteed money. They could cut him post June 1st, save $38.5 million. Maybe that's something you have to do when you're paying JSN, when you're paying Witherspoon, when you're paying, offensive linemen, defensive stars. They got a lot of them on that team. So I also wonder this. When you're paying wide receivers, and I went over and saw our friends here at Over the Cap, and I want to see, like, what are we looking at in terms of wide receivers? Okay. And look at the teams that are paying wide receivers a ton of money. Seahawks just won a Super Bowl, but again, that's last year. They weren't paying him. Jamar Chase for the Bengals, right? Bengals stink. Bengals have nothing on defense. Are the Bengals Super Bowl contenders? I don't believe so. Justin Jefferson for the Vikings. Are the Vikings Super Bowl contenders? I don't believe so. They don't. I mean, now they have Kyler Murray, but a lot of holes there. CeeDee Lamb. I mean, the jokes write themselves about the Cowboys. DK Metcalf, Garrett Wilson. So it goes on and on and on. Do you need this alpha wide receiver to compete for a Super Bowl? And do you have to pay one that amount of money if you do? So I don't know. It's tough. Once you start having to pay everybody, holes appear elsewhere. And I know I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan. People who have followed me out there, and they know this. And that's what the Eagles are about to run into, because you simply can't pay everyone. What do you think about this situation with JSN? I mean, you can't let him go. He's 24 years old. He's like the best receiver in the game.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that for the Seahawks, where they are, and like you said, this is an either or kind of choice with Ken Walker, for instance. And they already signed Charles Cross and Witherspoon. So, they're declaring these are our signature players. But I think that you're right to bring up our friends Over the Cap. Outstanding work. I got to shout out Jason, of course, and Nick Court, whose compensatory pick work is just, it adds a whole other layer to free agency. Like Seattle, it's all about Seattle today. How they teams make moves that can preserve comp picks, and teams make moves that can cancel out comp picks. So looking at some of the numbers you can find there, you can look at a number that is the percentage of the cap on an annual per year basis for salaries. And what's fascinating is, if let's just go back to say 2019, right? In 2019, the highest paid receiver, Julio Jones, he had just gotten a 3-year, $22 million a year extension. Ooh, that sounds paltry. I mean, that's like Wan'Dale Robinson almost got that this offseason, right? 11.69% of the cap. AJ Green, 10.47. Michael Thomas, 10.23. Odell Beckham Jr., 10.16. DeAndre Hopkins, 9.7. Now let's look at today in 2026. Jamar Chase's contract is $14.42 over 14%. Smith Njigba 13.99, Justin Jefferson 13.7. We're gonna put Puka Nacua in here somewhere soon, right? So the price of that alpha receiver you're talking about as a percentage of your team cap is going up significantly. Now, before you say, wait, what about the other positions? Guess what? Quarterback's going up significantly. Edge is going up significantly. At least some solace for the Seahawks is that cornerback isn't accelerating as fast. But you mentioned stars, and teams now have to ask, let's not think of it in terms of dollars. It's just, 14%. We play auction fantasy football. Hopefully it's the best way to play, right? I mean, you have to make choices about how you're going to build your team. And I'm looking at, Zay Flowers is going to get $35 to $40 million a year. I think that, but that's now start to put this in perspective. Do you see Zay Flowers as that foundational player? What about next year when Marvin Harrison Jr. and Brian Thomas Jr. and Roma Dunze? I mean, Roma Dunze has been good, $35-40 million a year. Heck, by the time we're having this conversation in the offseason, next offseason, Brian, it might be 40-45 million. And people can say, like, oh, they're not worth that. They haven't established that. But if they have any success, like if they have a kind of season that will make the team want to extend them, then they know that's the price. And I think it's going to spur more off-season trades of players on rookie contracts at these big-time positions, because it was one thing when the proposition was, well, top of the market's 10% of the cap. Now, if the top of the market's 14%, that's a decision where you might say, well, let's bring up a player like George Pickens. I think this has implications for George Pickens because, now you saw the Steelers, and maybe it's seen as a miscue that the Steelers traded him for a third-round pick after the way he played in last year's rookie contract. But we've already heard that the Cowboys could do a tag and trade maneuver with him. Now I think that becomes even more likely. Do you see there any way that the Cowboys will sign George Pickens long-term now that JSN got his extension?
I mean, you look at just this year, the Cowboys are spending $55.9 million on wide receivers. That's a ton of dough. When you look at their whole offense is $170 million for 2026. I think they're going to keep him this year. And, if you got to let him go, I mean, they could tag him again next year, right? You could, to hell with it.
It's like a 2-year, $75 million deal or $75 million deal if they do that.
I mean, Dallas is in such a unique situation where does Jerry truly want to win? My brother-in-law is a huge Dallas Cowboys fan, and we have this conversation often is, does he just want to be relevant or does he want to win? And Jerry said things in the press where he's like, I just like, if nothing's happened, nobody's talking about us, I'll go stir it up and make people talk about us. And, people who have played there have talked about the tours and how weird it is to play in Dallas. It's not like any other city. So I'm not exactly sure how much Jerry really wants to win or how much he just wants to be relevant. That said, having a great offense makes you relevant, and having stars makes you relevant. I don't necessarily know if George Pickens is a star. CeeDee Lamb to me is a star. Dak Prescott's a star, but you're paying those guys so much money. And I think we're going to get one and done with George Pickens.
Yeah.
Plus, who knows if he can keep it on the straight and narrow. We've seen him kind of fly off the handle at times and not make the most mature decisions. So I think it's nice of Dallas to do it this way. Give him this kind of 1 year, prove it. And again, trust me, folks, I'm not crying the blues for George Pickens getting a
30
franchise
million.
Deal. Yeah. Geez, he's not going to be able to eat this week with $30 million. So yeah, I think that's a one and done for Pickens here. I'm curious with him. He did so well again when CeeDee Lamb was out last season, and then at the end of the year, completely fell off from a fantasy perspective. He killed you down the stretch. Is he really that guy, or was it a case of people didn't know what to do or how to guard him, and then he took that alpha role, and the Cowboys had to throw because of the defense so much? Like, I think a full year of he and CD together is going to paint a better picture for us.
Yeah, and by the way, I was wrong. 27.3 million.
Oh, jeez.
No, but I want to make sure to get that for the record. So maybe it'd be more like a 2-year, $65 million deal when you add in inflation and so on. But I think you bring up the great. First, let's deal with the Jerry Jones question, because I mean, we don't have a team as hateable as the Yankees. Sorry if you're a Yankees fan.
I am a Yankees fan. It's opening day tonight. Come on, my kid's
It
wearing his
is.
Volpe jersey to school.
It is. I two people at my kid's school were wearing Giants hats, and they're not even Giants fans. So, but the point is, Jerry Jones is one of those people that it's entertaining in a way to watch him do the, mess around and then get to the find out part. We get to see him find out, like with Dak Prescott's contract negotiations, for instance, continually kicking it down the road. And I remember when that Landman clip went around. Remember, they were like, "Oh my God, Jerry Jones! Wow, who knew he could act?" Let's clear that up. Number one, narcissists are good actors. Okay, so I don't think it's that surprising that somebody who embodies narcissism.
That's a great point.
I mean, like, so all narcissists are great actors, or at least they never know how to project in front of a camera and all that stuff because they've been living their life in front of that invisible camera anyway. But the other part is, to answer your question, Brian, I don't think he was acting. I think he was talking about Jerry Jones when he's like, I got to work with my kid. I don't know if we were the best company or whatever he said. So asking a question of like, does he want to win? I mean, this is like a Citizen Kane Rosebud kind of moment. Like, I don't know what's driving Jerry Jones. I'm not quite sure. I mean, for somebody to be impressed with him or something, I don't know. But I do know that if he really wants to win, he would need to have the actual self-awareness to realize that he needs to step out of the process, right? He would have to fire himself in his football role if he really. Go ahead.
These guys are making so much money. It's the complete opposite of baseball. And my son and I have this conversation all the time. He's 12. He's trying to get into this landscape. If you follow me on Instagram at Drake Fantasy Football, you'll see my son. I repost some of his clips that he does. It's great. But I tell him, this is why baseball needs a salary cap. They need to have this kind of floor that you have to spend a certain amount of money. And it also going to something you and I will talk about a little bit with NIL for college sports is where Jerry Jones makes so much money off the brand that is the Dallas Cowboys and the revenue sharing and all the television deals and all the sponsorships and just being the Dallas Cowboys. He generates so much money. It doesn't matter if the Cowboys win or not. I mean, he's turning a profit. And I remember, didn't his son say something last year like, no, that was Hal Steinbrenner, I think. Sorry, I'm confusing my hateable, evil empires. Where it's like, we don't make any money doing this team. But but you look at teams across the NFL and you're like, do the Titans really care? Do the Bengals really care? Does their ownership in Arizona care if they win? Because they're just making money hand over fist, So, I think there are owners that really do, and maybe they're flushing out some of the guys who don't, i.e. Dan Snyder. So I don't know. I think it's tough to be a Cowboys fan. The Cowboys, Duke basketball, and the Yankees, the day they're eliminated is the day everyone celebrates. And they just give a little fist pump. I know I do. When Duke gets eliminated from the tournament.
Oh, man.
How about
Jerry McNamara? How about Jerry McNamara pushing them? How about that? New Syracuse head coach Jerry McNamara and Siena giving them all they could handle.
I know. GMAC now coming to Syracuse to take over this once proud program in Central New York.
Yeah, a folk hero. I try to explain. I've been, let's just get this out of the way, folks, because I know when JJ Zacharyason's on, or my man Dustin, like it's two Yinzers, but this is another special reunion. Because, you're actually Syracuse born and bred, right?
Yeah.
You're of the Salt City.
13208. Yeah, I live here.
And those folks and I was a Pitt fan growing up because I grew up outside Pittsburgh, but a Big East basketball fan more than a Pitt fan. And when I knew I was going to go to Syracuse, that became my adopted team, and then I lived it, and I was up there, like I was a junior in the 96 Final Four, or the run to the final. They were in the game pretty deep into the game against Kentucky. I know that for a handful of college basketball programs, like, I'm a Steelers fan, I am a Pirates fan, et cetera, but there's something different and special. Maybe it's because the winners are so bad. Talk about, like, we're just going off the rails because
this is what people want to hear.
This is a special occasion. It's March. This is it's March. Syracuse basketball. It's imprinted on your soul.
It is, and I tweeted about this yesterday when they announced Jerry McNamara. and I said that Jerry McNamara is my favorite all-time Syracuse player. And when he had his senior day, I went to the game. I went to the game by myself, and I sat in the upper deck of the then Carrier Dome. And for you people who don't understand college basketball, maybe you'll go to your local arena and there'll be, 5,000 people at some bandbox or whatever you guys are playing on campus. Syracuse plays in, I'm going to keep referring to it as the Carrier Dome.
Yes, up till the day we die.
Yeah. They play in a football stadium, and they fill 30,000 seats in this stadium. They pull out a section, and it's kind of like it's half of a football stadium. I'm sitting in the upper deck, and they bring out this children's choir from Scranton, Pennsylvania, where Jerry McNamara is from. And they sing this song called McNamara's Band, weeping. I'm crying in the upper deck because of what McNamara meant to Central New York, because of how he fought. He was as blue collar as it got, and he cared. You knew he cared. You knew he was going to give you everything he got. And if you watch his Siena team against Duke, they embody the coach. And that's when you know you have a good program, is when a team takes after their coach's personality. And I think Syracuse for a long time, the last 3 years, took Adrian Autry's personality of a very nice guy, but aloof, quiet, you're just there. You're not intense. You're not imposing your will on anyone. And it showed, and the program slipped, and the same in the final years of Boeheim. But what Syracuse basketball means to Central New York, it's their identity. Go talk to somebody outside of this year, I guess, who lives in Bloomington, Indiana, and they'll talk about Indiana basketball. Go talk to somebody in Lexington, Kentucky, and they'll talk about Kentucky basketball. It's the identity of the town. It's people know Syracuse University in Syracuse, New York, because of what Jim Boeheim built in the Big East. Go watch Requiem for the Big East, the greatest 30 for 30 that was ever produced. I cry every time I watch it. Every time. And I watched it. It was right after Syracuse lost in the ACC tournament, and I put it on. My son and I watch it, and I tear up, because that was my childhood in the 80s and 90s. And I grew up living and dying with a Tuesday night against Providence or Seton Hall. And, you want these guys to win, and they were there for 4 years. I get that's not college sports today because of NIL and people have to move around. But, I mean, you can still have a winning program and be relevant, and just Syracuse isn't. And for as many people in the national media that Syracuse has produced, and you see them all over the place, from Adam Shine to David Amendolara.
You can't swing a dead cat without hitting 7 Syracuse
Tarico,
grads.
Everybody who's posting about it right now. Like, there's people who care, and they come back, and that's why go to the Garden in the heyday, and you see all the Syracuse fans there. People think, I'm going to go to Syracuse. It's in New York City. It's 5 hours from New York City.
Right.
Upstate New York and New York City are two different planets. But I really do hope McNamara can turn it around. And tweeting about him and just college basketball in general has been very beneficial. I'm going to throw this out there.
Yeah.
If you want engagement on Twitter, tweet about Mormon basketball. I put a tweet out about BYU, and I went to bed. It was like 9:30 at night. I woke up and had over 1 million impressions. It got to 2 million by the end of the day. I had to mute it on my phone. My phone was on fire at that point. And all I said was, you paid this kid, I don't know, $8 million to come here. You finished, I don't know, 10th in the whatever conference you're in now, and you just lost to Texas, who was an 11 seed. Like, was that money well spent? People lost their minds, Sig. They lost their minds. But, I mean, I'm going to ask you, we're not talking fantasy football here, but is $8 million for a kid to play 1 year of college basketball for you when there is no return on investment unless you win the national championship? This is why I think NIL is unsustainable. Rich guys and girls who have all that money that donate to their school, maybe you get a little tax write-off. They don't like throwing money away and throwing good money at bad problems. Where's your return on investment with any college NIL? Okay, here's money. We're going to buy this quarterback. We're going to get Arch Manning. No one's going to remember Arch Manning's career if he doesn't win a national championship. So he could make $1 bazillion, and you donated it all to Texas. God bless you. But what did it buy you? You might as well have given it to a church, given it to a food pantry, give it to something that actually means something.
Well, I think the easiest answer to your question, Brian, and I'm really not trying to do a gotcha, but this is just what popped into my head when you asked, is that tweets about BYU basketball, that return on investment is that everybody's talking about BYU basketball.
But
and
for
I'm
the
not,
wrong reason.
Well, sure. But all I'm trying to say is, like, sometimes these programs are just spending money to try to be relevant. And we'll see what happens with NIL. Actually, NIL as a microcosm of some of the things that have come unmoored in our U.S. American society, and things we need to make decisions about and fix and restore in some way, because that's the whole thing with NIL. I mean, a lot of people might not like this, but why is NIL this Wild West, extra legal space right now? Because the college programs, the NCAA, the conferences never wanted to share with the players. And if they would have done this in a fair way, in an incremental way, then we never would have had to end up here. I mean, it's karma, basically. Now, will the money stay sustainable? I don't know, because I feel like large amounts of money are kind of meaningless now. I mean, I feel like people have there's a certain segment of people in our society now, Brian, that like $1 million is like couch cushion change for them. I mean, the meaning of money for the wealthiest people. I mean, they could toss around money. So it's just, if it's their alma mater or whatever, they want an arena named after them or something. So we'll see. But I want to take this back to the good feelings about Syracuse, because I do want to say, for folks to understand this, and I think there's a way we can apply this to football or anything. First of all, you hit on nostalgia. And folks, if you want some like business advice, like, here's a business. Nostalgia is going to become one of the biggest selling things, period. Okay. Like, going back to a feeling we all had when things were simpler or better. I mean, in some ways, fantasy football is fueled by that. Just our love of sports, period. But to understand Jerry McNamara, I think he was a state champ, right? He was a state
Yes, he won his senior year in Pennsylvania.
He was a state champ in high school. Okay. He shows up at Syracuse as a freshman, as a true freshman point guard, which, I mean, it's a point guard. Pitt had Sean Miller when he was a true freshman. That was pretty cool. But he was nowhere near what Jerry McNamara was. Jerry McNamara was the kind of player at Syracuse that they write folk songs about. In the first half of the national championship game, he hit 6 3-pointers in the first half. Then he got hurt, and Syracuse had to make it without him. His game-winning shots in the Big East tournament, he seemed like somebody who came out of the lore. Like, there's clutch players, and then there's players that live for that moment, and that's that dude. But going back to Syracuse and as the part of the Big East, for folks who didn't really get to experience Big East basketball through the 80s and 90s, I associate it with the complete explosion of hip hop, and how through the late 80s and the 90s and the mid 90s, there was just independent stuff happening that was not like anything you had heard before. Every week, a new record with Wu-Tang Clan. What's this? I've never heard anything like that. The Fugees. What's this? Whoa! Like, DOS Effects. I mean, things would come down. Black Sheep, and it was just De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest. It was just blowing your mind with the expanding horizons of hip hop. And as a student at Syracuse from 93 to 97, there were tons of people from the metropolitan areas, like you said, along the East Coast, that are actually pretty far away from Syracuse. And the new slang would make it up there, like maybe with a week, there was that week that everything was mad something, and so on. Like, but you got to, it was something cultural. I think it was an extension of like playground basketball, like basketball where you're really like proving yourself, like person against person, almost like boxing. And it just felt like every game, like you said, like a Tuesday night game felt consequential. Oh my God, when Syracuse and Georgetown played, it felt like the end of the world. Or Syracuse and UConn played, it felt like that game, the world just stopped. It didn't matter what the records of the teams were. It was like when Rocky and Apollo were about to spar at the end, just this incredible clash of wills. And Syracuse and upstate New York, and that championship run with McNamara and Carmelo Anthony and Keem Moore went through Albany, They turned Albany into a home stadium.
I was at the Elite Eight game against Oklahoma. There was no chance Oklahoma could win.
Zero chance. And Oklahoma was a good team. It was a good team. They were Syracuse just destroyed the Big 12 in that tournament. Anyway, I just hope that when people think of the Jerry McNamara from their team and the way that they connect, because one of the things that hurts my heart, because we were talking about Jerry Jones, Brian, and, in some ways, this game that we cover is like a board game for billionaires. Like we're analyzing, they rolled a 7. They decided to buy Park Place. Let's see how that works out for them. It's kind of sad, right? But what's really underneath it is our love for where we grew up, our love for our families, our love for our love for our communities, our love for life. Because even just when you remember being a kid, it makes you smile. Things you remember, like that place, that safe place inside of you that you remember. And in some ways, they're making billions and billions of dollars off of our love.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a straighter line instead of, it's like, turn this off. Don't play fantasy football. Oh, is this that moment? Is it actually happening? I figured my whole career one day this moment was going to happen. Of course, you would bring it out in me, Brian. But, like be with someone you love instead of watching a football game, because by putting that stuff in between us and the things that make us light up, for being exploited, just like those players were until they got $8 million a year for BYU to go one and done.
It's billionaires paying millionaires in a game watched by and obsessed over a dude making 60 grand. That's professional sports. Like people go nuts for these games and you realize it and you're like, I'm going to boo this guy. It's like, he's making $200 million. Like, you think this guy really cares if, Joe the plumber in the 58th row is upset with him? But you had a great point about what brings us together with fantasy football and with sports. And you reminded me of my son when I wrote this article that actually won an FSWA award for Article of the Year. So shout out to FSWA for
and your son for inspiring it.
So the story was about him finding fantasy football and him just finding football in general. And I would watch the games all the time down here, if you're watching on YouTube, in my little man cave. And one day he came down and he just started watching the games and he got into it. And now he's 12, about to be 13. Maybe he's 13. I probably should know how old my kid is, but
we'll edit that out.
He's 13. He's 13. He's in 8th grade. So he got into it. And when the Eagles lost the Super Bowl to the Kansas City Chiefs, the phantom James Bradbury holding call, we won't get all into it, but he cried, and did he cry. And he went up to his room and he was really upset. And in the story, I kind of tell him about, like, hey, tomorrow I want you to go to school and I want you to wear your Eagles jersey. And he's like, no, everyone's going to say you're a loser and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. You're a fan. You're a fan if they win. You're a fan if they lose. You're a fan if you're the Cleveland Browns and you never sniff the playoffs. You've got to be a fan. And the next day I wrote in the article, he comes downstairs and I can see the tails of his hunter green jersey on, or midnight green as the Eagles call it. And he had it on under his jacket and he wore it. And now he has a ritual every Monday, even non-football season. He wears an Eagles jersey to school just to show his pride for Philadelphia and the team. And he's into it and sharing that, passing that down. When Philadelphia finally won, and I could see how it would impact people all over the nation, or whatever team you are. When your team wins, maybe it's Syracuse basketball, maybe it's the Philadelphia Eagles, maybe it's Chicago Cubs when they won the World Series, and your grandfather, your father, your son, you can pass down the years of angst and money you put into it, time, sweat, energy, going to the ballpark, investing time into watching these games. Finally, for that moment, destiny has been fulfilled. You have arrived. You're on top of the mountain to share that moment with your loved ones. That's why sports matters. And that's why we love doing it. And maybe that's why we love fantasy football, for that one day around Christmas time when we win our league and we can go, I'm better than my other 11 friends. That's what it's all about. That's why we're here every week talking about it.
Yeah, and I think that to draw it back to fantasy football, I would say, Brian, it is about sharing and greatness, but not by being the best fantasy football team. It's just as you go along through the season, if you like, the original fantasy football ethos should be like, I'm drafting my guys. Like I get amped every time Darnell Washington catches a pass. Now when he catches a pass and runs some fool over in the secondary, we both did something with that, both of our teams. So you're sharing in that. But like you said, the feeling of the championship, in the Red Sox come to mind, because I know there were a lot of people that went. I remember that was the first time I heard about a championship happening for a team and people going to grave sites. And
Wow.
I can get emotional about it because
Me too.
we all experience moments that make us feel like I wish this person was here to share it with me, but they are. I mean, we're exchanging pieces of ourselves all the time. We're doing that right now, Brian. And the little piece of me will be with you, and a little piece of you. Namaste. I mean, the universe and me, and the universe and you. And I don't think that. I hope that. Because the United States is obsessed with winners and losers. And like you said, your son was worried, like, that makes me a loser. They're calling me a loser because this team lost, right? And I hope that when people feel that exhilaration, it's not because we're the best, we're better. It's more like I'm experiencing this capital J joy, this sense of like this redeeming, cleansing, rebirth moment with all of these people that I've been sharing this journey with all along. I probably don't even know 99.9% of their names, but we become part of a mass consciousness when we're rooting for a team. And you better bet we affect the outcome. I mean, not in ways that we can control, but we do. And there's this thing about life, Brian, that we're all emotionally engaged in it, but the majority of the things that make us feel emotions are things we can't control, right? And being a fan of a team is one of the ultimate ways that you embrace that. You're not on the field, you're not calling plays, you're not making decisions in the front office. So you're letting your emotions, you're letting some other group of people just toy with your emotions. But like Vince Lombardi said, it isn't whether you win or lose or it's how you play the game, right? And this is why your story about your son was so poignant. It isn't about whether your team wins or loses. It's about whether you experience love and a connection through being a fan, whether it's to your neighborhood, to your community, even just, everyone talks about like Pittsburgh, and this is kind of a sore subject for me as a Steelers fan, because moving down here to New Orleans, people here love the Saints like they love watching their kids' team play, in Pittsburgh, boy, they hate the team when they lose. Boy, do they hate the team when they lose. And that's, it's a different kind of relationship. But for you to impress upon your son, like, no, like your connection with this team and your journey with this team and all the other people that have taken this journey with this team is something that is about you. And you should embrace it. It like love that journey, whatever, not for the outcome, but for you're part of it. You're part of something larger than yourself. And that sharing, that feeling ourselves dissolve into something larger than ourselves, being part of a we instead of an I mean, I think that's kind of the point of us being here, Brian.
Sure. I took him to Philly this year to see his first Eagles game at the Link. We went to a Kelly Green day against the Giants. It was the day Cam Scadabo actually broke his ankle. It was that game, but we got to go. He got to go to the Rocky Steps. He ate his first cheese steak, and he got the tailgate and just walk around the Link and see the the circus that is an Eagles tailgate, which is fun. And that. When I remember watching him go into the stadium and he wanted to go up to the high, this is a weird thing he likes to do. Any stadium he goes into, he wants to go to the highest seat in the farthest corner and like go up there and take a picture and see all of that. And I'm like, buddy, I just spent $500 a ticket on seats in the second row of the end zone. Like, you're up here in the nosebleeds. But that's what builds it. And I remember going to the Carrier Dome with my grandfather, and he had season tickets for us ever since 1991. I remember going Syracuse against Florida. Kirby Dardar takes a reverse on an opening kickoff.
Oh, wow.
And takes it and they beat Shane Matthews in Florida, who I think at the time was ranked like number 4 in the country. It's like their only loss of the year. And Florida was really good. And I remember that and just the bananas nature of that. And see, I got me emotional. Going to the Dome, and they changed out the seats at the Carrier Dome. They had long metal benches.
Oh, yeah.
Those were the seats, and they were just a sticker.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you sit, and they replaced them with actual seats without cup holders. That's another story. Maybe the new athletic director can get behind that. But before they took those seats out, I went back. And I went to those seats. And I don't know. That's what sports does.
Well, as I'm becoming an old man, I really appreciate that you're being so real here, because this is the real stuff. And we talked about this before we went on the air. Of course, to Syracuse dudes that in this environment, I don't know why it's the sports media mecca. It just is. And so many of us that ended up in this fantasy football space fashioned ourselves as people that would be sports talkers. And the reason that I left the Newhouse School after a year and a half was because it was a school that was trying to make everybody sound like and act like and write like everybody else. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want, and the mass media, and then the internet comes along, lo and behold, democratization of media. And you can actually create media that gets distributed to the whole world for a very low cost. And you can talk the way that real people talk about things, not the way that this buffed artificial thing that isn't real, that is, I think people are more and more waking up to just how empty like the monoculture and mass media is. And we're connecting with each other. But when you told that story, the older I get, there are things that one of the things that always baffled me was like why we tell kids, oh, there's this Santa Claus, he rewards the good kids, and then it's magic. And then when they get to a certain age, we're like, no, actually magic isn't real. Because actually magic is real, right? Because Santa Claus is the spirit of love in the heart of the people creating Christmas for the kids. It is, Santa Claus is just a spirit of giving at that time of year. And there's so many things that are quote unquote magical or beyond our, ESP extrasensory, outside of our five senses, that are real. Telepathy is one. I mean, come on, folks, you walk around all day, you could you feel what people's vibes, at least. That's not physical. And another one, Brian, is time travel. The problem is you can't time travel your body, but you can time travel your consciousness. And when you have these moments, like you described, going to games, like my dad and I talk about on the couch. Whew, here, it's right here. I'm at his desk. Sigmund L. Bloom.
Oh, that's cool.
Rest in peace, Pops. He and I, we had a thing where we would go see the Pirates every year, and the Pirates are horrible, but I still love the Pirates because when I'm engaged with the Pirates, I'm like talking to my dad wherever he is about them. What's going on with the Pirates, And by going back to those seats, like by having those occasions, like, hey, kids, hey, folks out there, take your kids to games. How about that? Like, here's our big public service announcement. Take your kids to games. Show them, have them awestruck by the scale and magnitude, even if it's $500 a ticket. Do it once at least, because it's going to be a memory that, may we all outlive our kids. May our kids outlive us. Geez, sorry, 40 there. May our kids outlive us. May our kids outlive us. And they'll have that kind of, they might not remember a Tuesday, but they'll remember when they the first time went to an Eagles game with their dad. And they'll be able to always, just like you went to those seats. And why you were choked up is because it's folks, again, another thing that's real is like you're departed. In New Orleans, we don't say you died. We say you transitioned or you joined the ancestors. We don't say bye. We say see you later. The people, they're with you. They're still, and if it's your blood relatives or people that you've really let into your soul, like they can help you. Like you can actually like find them inside of you. And my mom and my dad are both deceased, but they help me all the time. I remember things they told me. That's one of the weird things about parenting I'm realizing, Brian, is we're actually planting seeds for like 10 years from now or 20 years from now, or maybe for after we're gone. Don't expect results today. Boy, that's going to drive you crazy, especially when the age that our kids are at. I've got a 13-year-old too. 13-year-old boys. But I was one once. I know you are too. We won't get into that. But we, by creating these lasting moments, they can come back to that. And I remember sitting on those butt hurting bleachers. But like you said, for you, it had an entire other meaning. Okay. Words, sorry if you want fantasy football content. Hey, go to Drake Fantasy, go to Football Guys. But
it's March.
It's
Relax,
March, folks. We're gonna be real people. It's Syracuse. It's March Madness. We're gonna. We talked about this. You were almost on, and Cecil's great. Cecil's always like, save it for the show, save it for the show. And you are also a professional, Mr. Drake. So you even caught yourself, save it for the show. But you were gonna tell me about the day that you quit, because on the occasion, let me give you your props that you just ran a half marathon in your 40s, right?
Yeah.
And like an hour and 40 something. I mean, man, I mean, I was like, you were a competitive. You must have been a competitive long distance runner at some time. And you said, there's a story about that.
So I put out on Twitter and Instagram, whatever. It's very nice feedback. And I didn't want it to be about me. That's whenever I write, I want someone to get something from it. So I did this post and I talked about how I got out of the shower in November and I looked at myself, and my whole life I've had this thought in the back of my mind about, like, you are the king of unrealized potential, of not finishing what you start, just kind of half-assing things. And I go, you know what? Let's do something. Let's get in shape. And it's not like I trained for a year for this race. I trained for, 3.5, 4 months. And I said, I'm going to run the Syracuse half marathon. I used to run in middle school, high school, a little bit in college. And I went out and I didn't, and I hate when people do this, but God bless you if you do. There's all those people that will post every day they're at the gym. They're posting the selfie at the gym. And if that motivates you, good for you. It's not for me. And they need the inspirational quotes and all this. I didn't do any of that. This is for me. I didn't need anybody to know that I was going to run this race. Obviously, my family knew I was doing it, but I went out, I did the race, and I want people to see at the end the grinding in silence of, like, if you put your mind to it, you can go do this yourself too. It doesn't have to be run a marathon. If you want to get in shape, you want to quit smoking, you want to quit drinking, you want to start that podcast you've always wanted to start, you want to get into fantasy football content creation. There's no gatekeepers. Go do it. Get off. This is a bad thing to say on this podcast, but as I wrote, get off the couch.
Right.
Get off the couch, put the phone down, and go do it. But it's funny. The day I quit my college cross country team, shout out SUNY Oswego at the time, I was running.
I'm sorry, Oswego.
I was there. OSWEGO.
No. I'm just saying that was our little moniker. Anyway.
Yeah, there. Oswego.
If you weren't from the upstate New York,
Oswego.
you wouldn't get it. Sorry.
I almost got in a fist fight at a party at SU with some kids who were, because all my friends went to Syracuse, and I went. My dad. I had I was going to go to Newhouse. I went to orientation. I'm on the floor of the Carrier Dome eating lunch. They go, Mr. Drake, this is what it's going to cost for your son to go to school here. My dad looks at that. He's like, I'm not signing that. I'm not paying for you to come here. So sight unseen, I went to Oswego, 40 minutes up the road. But anyways, I'm the president of my fraternity. I'm the play-by-play voice of the Oswego State men's basketball team. I'm doing a million different things. It's 75 degrees in Oswego. That happens about once a decade. And if you're in Oswego, me and this other guy, we're running for cross-country practice. And we go by this bar. There's 200 sorority girls on the deck of this bar, having fun, looking around, tank tops. You guys have all been there. You can imagine. And I look at this kid, and he looks at me, and we go, what the hell are we doing here? We're not getting paid to be on this team. I'm not the best runner. We're like the 8th guy in the team. That day, him and I walked into the coach's office, and we're just like, yeah, we're done. I'm going to go down to the Woodshed Tavern and hang out down there and see what's going on. And that's what we did. And that was the last day that I ran competitively, which was, what was that, 2001 or so? 2001, 2002. And until Sunday was probably the last race that I ever ran. And I wanted to see if I could wake these legs up again as a 46-year-old father of 2. And I'm proud to say that I did. And listen, again, I didn't set any records. I ran sub 8-minute pace, which is, pretty solid. I wasn't trying to run anybody down or win a medal, but I was proud that I did it. And I want to see, maybe we could run a full at some point if I want to, but I hope it inspired my children who were there to say, hey, look, you're going to need to do hard things to get anywhere in life. Like, you can't just show up and things happen. You have to put in the work. And it's creating your podcast, creating your brand. It's how we got here. It's how, you became the man in fantasy football. And it's how I carved out my little niche in this. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen because, it's lucky. You got to work. So I hope that's what my kids learn from that little 13-point-mile jaunt around Syracuse last Sunday.
And it's a great story of how you quit the team because it was just priorities. I mean, it's just clarity, like just a bolt of clarity out of the blue. And may we all be blessed with that kind of clarity when it's time to like pick a side of the fork in the road. Because then you can walk forward without looking over your shoulder and wondering what if, right? And I think what you talk about manifesting intention and believing in yourself is important because I mean, Cecil would say, what you think about, you bring about. I like to say, you'll find what you're looking for. And this thing with aging and being aging men, because for me, turning 50 was this symbolic thing of maybe I'm going to try to deal with all this with something other than denial. Denial was the only tool in my toolbox. And guess what? Nothing changed, and I started taking medication for anxiety, for ADHD, and different things like that. And the medication, I mean, the modern medical science, but I think the most important thing was deciding that I wanted things to be different. I wanted to change. And it sounds overly simplistic, but I mean, that's the first step, and that's the most important step.
Yep.
And then you do it in a spirit of hopefully of light and love and joy. I've brought up a couple of times, hopefully I saw someone put it this way. I thought it was really good because we have the figure skater Alyssa Liu who won the gold medal. She quit, she walked away, and the other people of her milieu said, "You can't do that. You'll never get back to this level again." She came back 2 years later because she left because she wasn't enjoying it. She came back in the spirit of joy and she won a gold medal. And hopefully that can replace like the Mamba mentality for our children, that greatness isn't about punishing yourself, denying and sacrifice, but that greatness can be about letting something fill up your heart, your soul, that gives you access to untold reservoirs of energy because it is in that spirit. Or even like you did it, I think I would say in spirit, and this is something I'm trying to learn right now at 50, is how to love yourself. How to say, I'm like you said, I'm doing it for me.
Yeah.
This is about Brian's relationship with Brian. So
yeah,
man.
I hated my job, which I don't have that job anymore. I've hated a lot of my last few jobs. That's a whole nother story. But yeah, and you just get in this situation, feel like, is this all there is? Is this all I'm gonna do? And I have a very, very blessed life where I have 2 kids, I've got a great house, I got a great wife. People say, "Look, I hear you on Sirius XM. I hear you. You're doing a podcast with John Hansen. You're writing articles, winning awards, and all that." Yeah, that's awesome. But and a lot of people would kill for stuff like that. But I don't know. Deep down inside, it's like, what else are you looking for? What's gonna fill that hole in your heart and give you that, not the closure, but just have your cup runneth over, I guess. And maybe you'll never appreciate it until it's gone. It's like they always say, youth is wasted on the young. As 20 years from now, when I'm not doing fantasy football podcasts where people go, I'll look back and go, my God, that was so cool. I got to talk to Sigmund Bloom and do a show with Dwayne McFarland for 5 years. And I got to work with John Hansen and I got to talk to Mike Clay. I mean, like, it's very, very cool stuff that probably in the moment you're too stupid and stubborn to realize how freaking awesome it is.
Yeah, well, hey, that's the goal. I mean, we talked about this before we went on the air about I'm living down in New Orleans, and I think that one of the messages I have absorbed, or maybe it was always just in me in New Orleans, helped me find it in me, is they say, enjoy yourself, it's later than you think. The whole spirit of the holiday, the Black holiday of Mardi Gras, is enjoy today, be out in the streets today with your people and enjoy it in spirit of love. And like I say, Mardi Gras Day is like it's like a family reunion, except the family is like the humanity is the family, but there's a real affection among people like there is in a family reunion. And it is about that joy of participation. It is about, even though it's hard, trying to appreciate what you have when you have it. And what we have is the greatest gift, because I love how you said, youth is wasted on the young. Because I think the gods would say life is wasted on the mortals. They're jealous of us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we get to experience every day. Look back at the Greek mythology. Look back at the other stories where the gods will come down in different forms, get to be part of what we get to be part of every day, and mess things up and get in trouble and so on. But we have the greatest gift every day, and it's easy. I mean, there's a whole other conversation here about life in the United States in this moment, where everybody's traumatized, everybody's exhausted, everybody is lonely, because that life is not meeting our spiritual needs, life is not meeting our social needs, life is not. I mean, it used to be that just like living life the way people lived it in like typical human culture made you a human being, and we've strayed from that. And I think that that's one of the ways that we get back there is just appreciating other people. I mean, you ran a half marathon, and it was an incredibly meaningful thing. But sometimes the most meaningful thing you do in a day is just being present and being a human being and making another human being just feel seen and heard. I have these conversations with people, and I can think about myself. Like, I remember this high school teacher said this one thing to me, and like later on in life, it guided me. You never know. Like, just be present and try to genuinely be positive with people, and you never know what the effects of that are going to be. There, my TED talk is over.
Well, let me spin this forward, because we can talk about fantasy football, and a lot of what you just mentioned, I think, has tied into the cell phones. People are on their phones so much, and they see the world through a glimpse of Instagram influencers and people putting out a fake life they want people to think that they live. Like, oh my God, their life is so glamorous, and I have this dull life here in suburbia where I'm picking my kid up and taking him to soccer practice and whatnot. And then it goes into, which is kind of a topic of the day, is AI. And I'd love to get your thoughts on AI and where do you think it's going to go in fantasy football and content creation. And I still think the great thing about fantasy is the community, and people are going to look for what you and I do, and that's have conversations with people that matter, that are thought-provoking, that an AI bot isn't going to have. The humor and all that. Like, can it scrape a bunch of data and give you, hey,
draft your team for you, start your players for you.
Yeah.
Maybe you just enter the league and check in December and see how you did. But go ahead. Well, here's what I'll say. And I mean, we're up against it, as we got to end right under the hour, but I'll say this. Okay. And again, and the reason I said, by the way, everyone's traumatized and exhausted and lonely, is I don't want you to think that I'm trying to judge you or say anything bad about you if you have trouble finding that joy of participation, which really, honestly, is your connection to the divine. But that's for another show. I know it's really hard. But AI, I think, is a god made out of our intellect that we are building to worship. And it has all the same flaws that we have. And it's, if anything, it's going to accelerate wherever we're headed. That doesn't sound good to me. I don't want to get there faster. Right? I mean, what is this for? One of the things they're finding out already is people that are using AI to be more productive doesn't free them up to do other things. Just like when appliances are in the kitchen, it's making them have to do more work, and eventually they get burnt out. Now you have bosses saying that, yes, my teams are much more productive. I don't have the time to review everything they make now. The Yahoo boss was saying, like, people have to start valuing. We're going to have a culture of valuing each other's time. So I think that already some of the find out part of that is, personally, and I'm so glad I work with forward-looking people, I think AI can help your workflow and things like that. I think replacing people with AI is just something I have to take a stand against.
Yeah.
And I think that, and everybody, you do you, but I don't want AI to know me, really. I think it's actually probably in your best interest, if possible, folks, to not do that. But going back to fantasy football, I think fantasy football, as my good friend Uriah Zane Hunt, who reached out to me to have lunch 17 years ago, said, it's hard for men to make friends. It's hard. And this is a way that we make friends and we keep friends. And it's not just about that. But I know spending this time, this is not the last time that I'm going to have my friend, fellow Cusian, Brian Craig here. When the Q's is in the house, oh my God. Hey, folks, thank you for giving us this opportunity. You're allowing us to flourish. I hope we can help you flourish because you're so very classy.